right, Coach Carl, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me, my man. I'm super pumped after listening to some of your content. And yeah, I know that this is going to be an awesome back and forth. So I'm really looking forward. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Oh, absolutely. The only thing we're not doing is like we're not like back and forth lifting or something like that, where you can I can show you
Yeah.
I can show you what it's really like. But all right, so let's go right into it. So you're a personal trainer and in turned a men's health advocate, which I think is actually like very interesting because and not to disparage anything else, but you don't hear that a lot. You don't hear about men's advocates. It's all, and not in a bad way, but there's a lot of women's advocates out there, not a lot of men's advocates. So I'm very curious into how you got into this field and how you kind of transitioned into this even in the first place.
Well, it's so funny how you bring that up because like you take a look at, I've been a personal trainer for about 11 years now. And when I take a look at my group fitness classes, like everybody knows, like what's the percentage of men to women in group fitness? Like it's insanely heavily favored towards women.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what your career's been like in terms of the percentage of one-on-one clients that are women, but it's the same thing. Like if I look back over the 11 years, it's probably because as guys, we think we don't need any help. And it's just like, we're not going to look at the instruct or the directions. I don't know what it is, but very few of my clients have been men. But here's what it's funny because when I started my podcast and I started kind of this whole movement that I'm on, it was really directed towards anybody that kind of found themselves in my same shoes. So if you're huge into fitness and you're huge into personal development, okay, I'm like, you're my type of person. Mm-hmm. But last month, I'm on Instagram and I'm reading all these captions about Men's Health Month. And then it hit me that number one, the stat that 80% of all suicide attempts are men, which is absolutely
really
insane.
I didn't
80%. And then 70% of divorces are initiated by women. Ooh. So clearly there's something that men are missing. And when I say men are missing, I was in that boat 100%. Like I was married to the same person twice. We ended up finally getting a divorce. I've had numerous failed relationships in the past. I've dealt with depression and anxiety and panic attacks my entire life. And as I've been diving more and more into that, it's becoming so blatantly obvious that men just don't have the space or the tools or the support that they need to make the changes that they want to make. And if they did, then the numbers wouldn't say what they are. Am I saying I want it to be more 50-50? No, I'm just saying that the number clearly needs to go down and men need some serious help. So since I've been able to apply some strategies that have really, really helped me manage my depression, manage anxiety, get my mental and emotional health stronger, really transform my body, transform my relationship with my partner in a very significant way. It's like, okay, well, I think I need to niche down and focus 100% of my attention on men. So that's how that goes.
Wow. First off, some crazy stats there. Had no idea. So yeah. What do you do as a men's health advocate exactly? How do you find people? Like, how do they find you? Like, how does that happen?
It's been super interesting. This is something that I fell into completely by accident. So in 2017, I joined a men's group coaching program online. It's called Wake Up Warrior, and it was absolutely life-changing. It was phenomenal. Whenever I would get into a small group setting, I don't know why, but I guess just because of my experience as a trainer and some of the other tools and strategies that I've developed that helped in my life, men just started asking me, "Okay, Carl, what did you do with this? What did you do with this?" And whenever I was in a little group, I always kind of took on more of a captain role, if you will, because people were just hearing the success that I was having inside of my relationship, especially, and they just wanted to know more about that. So as I've been connecting with people through podcasts and everything like that, and building relationships, the same thing is happening. People are opening up in this one-on-one environment. And by people, I mean men. They're opening up in this one-on-one environment and really finding out that what they thought they struggled with on their own, they don't, or what they thought were like excuse me, the things that they struggle with and they thought they were the only ones, they're realizing they're not. Like, say, for example, today I had an amazing conversation with a guy I just met last week inside of a business coaching program we're a part of. We had our first call today, and every 2 seconds, like, oh my God, this is resonating. This is resonating with me because the way that I look at it, one of the beautiful things about fitness is when you go into a group fitness room, you can see everybody's strength on display. There is no hiding. It's just pure truth. It's vulnerability, and nobody's judging anybody else. Like, if anything, they're encouraging people, but there is no hiding your weaknesses in a group fitness class. So what if we just started to apply those same strategies inside of a setting outside where, you know what, you get together with a man and you're comfortable at least starting the conversation about how you deal with depression and anxiety, panic attacks. And as soon as I started doing that, men just started, like, our bonds got so much stronger. And guys that I would either train with or been friends with for years, now all of a sudden we're having these super deep conversations just because somebody kind of opened the dialogue and made them realize, listen, you're not alone. So I think that's so incredibly important, just to help men realize that whatever you're battling with, it may be unique, but you're not the only one.
I think you had a good point there where a lot of times, and this was earlier on, but like, guys tend not to, be in those situations to almost be able to open up. I've seen so many people at the gyms I've worked with over the years where it's like, I will finally go up to them and like ask them what they're doing, and they actually have no idea what they're doing. And I'm like, you've been here I've seen you for like 3 years. And and I'm like, okay, like, you've been doing the same routine for 3 years. Like, yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, and you didn't think to ask for help. And that's that segues right into your point of like, that opens the door to like having these conversations and getting down to like, how do we fix some of the things that are happening? You mentioned depression and anxiety. So I think and you mentioned the stats earlier. So I think that's running rampant. Well, to talk about your journey through it and kind of, because you're obviously, people who aren't watching, you're very, like, you lit up right when you started talking about it. So you're very passionate about it. It's emanating from you. So like, obviously you've gone through it. Kind of what's your take on it?
So for me, like, the game-changing day for me was December 4th, 2020. That's when, like, shit really hit the fan for me. Or when I became aware of how bad things were. And when I say bad things were as it relates to depression, anxiety, and everything like that, like, I quit my corporate job that I actually really enjoyed, was a really good job, high paying, great benefits and everything like that. I quit that. It's coming on 6 years now.
Wow.
And so that was 2016. So fast forward to 2020, I'd been a personal trainer at that time for, I guess, 8 or 9 years. And I quit my job to pursue my passion and purpose of helping people improve the quality of their lives through health and fitness. Because when I was 19, my father passed away in his sleep as a result of heart disease. And that kind of spawned my love for helping people take care of themselves so they don't have to go through what my family went through. And so in 2020, I'm having trouble getting out of bed in the morning because I just cannot get myself to face the world. I'm having trouble going to bed because I know I have to wake up in the morning. I would go as far, like, I've got 2 dogs. I would go as far as, say I've got a 6:30 in the morning clients. You know what? Alarm goes off at like 4:30. I'm like, I can't do this. And then you hit snooze and it's like, Carl, you have to get out of bed. You can't keep doing this. I would text my clients saying that my dog was sick and I had to take her to the vet, just to lie, get out of facing people, because I just could not tell people, listen, I am so broken inside right now that I have no idea how I'm gonna deal with everyday life. And the worst part of that is, people believed me. So guess what kind of texts I'm getting later on? It's like, how's your dog, Carl? And it's like,
oh, crap.
So you have to keep the lie going. And it's just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I am supposedly doing what I love and what I'm on this earth to do. And I can't get myself out of bed in the morning. Like, how bad is this going to have to get before I change? So,
and this was after you quit the corporate job.
Yeah.
You're on your own, just training.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Absolutely. 4 years after the fact. So, yeah, that was a hardcore wake up call. And at that point I'd hit bottom. So it didn't seem there, you could definitely go further down than I was. There's no question about that. However, that was a turning point for me where I was like, okay, I cannot let this get any worse. Because at the time I lost my relationship with my partner, Jenny Lee, as well. Like, we're back together now. But at that point in time, I was such a horrible partner that we decided to separate for 3 months. And we didn't know if we were going to get back together again because of who I was in the relationship. And it all pretty much stemmed from my mental and emotional lack of health.
So, and I appreciate you sharing that. Obviously, it's obviously a very, personal story and decisions. So I guess what happened? I guess I want to hear the kind of the next 2 years, right? So we had that day in 2020, and now
Yeah.
through COVID basically, and so it's
Yeah.
2022, 2023 at this point. And so I guess what was the change that you made? How did you, because and not many, I don't talk about this a lot on my show, and I've mentioned it a couple of times. You have to be a long time listener to hear some of this, but I also battle with anxiety and depression as well. Like, I was medicated.
Okay.
I had it in college. Like, it was a whole thing. And so I used, and fitness was one of my avenues that I used to really push myself out.
Okay.
Mine was less of a debilitating depression, and mine was more of just like massive anxiety and anger. And like,
How did that translate into your everyday life? Like, what did that look like for you?
it was a very irritable person,
Okay.
very just stressed, but I was still productive. I would still get up in the morning, do things. So it didn't affect my production, but it affected my quality of life. I wasn't that healthy. I didn't feel good all the time. And the meaning of life was very just like, why am I getting up in the morning? Like, this is so
Yeah.
stupid. And it never got to a horrible point, but like, it was just like, why, like you snooze, miss class. And this happened when I was a lot younger. And it's just like, why am I getting up? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, what is the point to all of it? It's just so my productivity, because I'm almost a perfectionist at some level, didn't take a hit, because I'm still like, at the time I was like, I'm better than all of you, so I'm still going to do well, but I'm almost like, it's almost a front facing Scott and a back facing Scott. And I
Okay.
used, basically getting in shape as a part of the way to kind of build myself out of it. So I'm curious to kind of what you did to kind of help mitigate, at least a minimum.
So I did the exact same, not the exact same thing. I took the same route with what I believe might be a different twist. So the reason why I know it was December 4th, 2020, and not just sometime in the end of 2020, is because that was the morning I woke up. I decided, you know what? I'm going to transform my body next year more than I ever have. So I went to the bathroom, took the glamour shot with the shirt off, whatever.
Hell yeah.
And then I didn't realize I had taken a picture on December 4th of 2019, exactly a year ago. And those pictures looked exactly the same.
Oh,
And it wasn't good. Like, it definitely was by no means horrible, but I went an entire year thinking I was crushing my workouts, crushing my nutrition, only to realize nothing had changed. So I don't know why the next question came to my mind, but it did. And the next question was, Carl, if you're kidding yourself with your body, where else are you fooling yourself? And that's when I had my wake up call. But then I decided, okay, when I was separated from Jenny Lee, I said, okay, I need to get stuff together here. Like, this is enough. And I'm going to start with my body, because that seems to be the easiest thing. Like, we know what we're doing. We just have to start doing what we know. So in 63 days, I made a radical transformation, and it wasn't hard. I didn't change that much. I just tweaked a few little things. So then when that happened, I asked myself, okay, I know what I'm doing in the gym now. I know what I'm doing with my nutrition. It's not hard. It doesn't require motivation and discipline and willpower and all that stuff. I've got a system in place. What would happen if I use the same strategies that have worked for my body with my mental and emotional health? So, say, for example, when I would be debilitated in bed thinking about going and training my clients, the analogy that I made was like, okay, that's like me going into the gym and immediately, let's say I'm doing deadlifts, and immediately putting my 1 rep max on the bar and going to lift it. Like, that's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
You have to warm up to it. You have to warm up to that 1 rep max. So I'm like, okay, Carl, what is your warm up for getting out of bed? What do you need to do? Don't think about your clients. Can you get up and let the dogs out? Yes. Okay, so then that was just the first step, and it started building momentum. So I started doing things like that. And one of the things I always tell my clients in the gym is you only have to do something once to know you can do it again. And
Yes.
so I just kept doing that over and over and over again. And there were a whole bunch of different strategies that I would just take from the gym. Like, say, for example, let's say you're holding a wall sit and you're like, your legs are burning, your legs are burning, your legs are burning. And it's like, okay, when that happens, you got two options. You can either break down or you can break through. And whichever one you're going to do on a habitual basis will eventually become your regular behavior. So for me, I was in the habit of breaking down, breaking down, breaking down. So I just started slowly breaking through, and then that became the norm. So again, just taking as much as I knew from inside the gym and applying it everywhere outside the gym, especially my mental and emotional health.
Wow.
So
That's at first I never even thought about it that way, of taking those. I guess I've only thought about it from like a fitness standpoint or a habitual standpoint, but yeah, like the idea is, okay, like don't think, about the client, about this, about just like what literally is the next thing I have to do. And it can even be as simple as, okay, can I turn my body and put my feet on the ground? Can I take
I actually did that. It's hilarious you mentioned it. That was one of the steps.
Really?
Can I roll over in bed?
That's
Yes,
incredible.
Carl, you rolled over. Okay, now what? Okay, can you put your feet on the ground? So you're exactly right.
And when you do that, you prove to yourself, okay, like it's the next thing. And it's actually not so bad once you do it. It's so much worse in your head. And then when you do it, it's like, okay, I don't know what I was complaining about this whole time, but then it restarts until you kind of get out of that habit. You mentioned that you said you did a bunch of different tweaks. Do you want to go into kind of one or two of those tweaks that you kind of made that adjusted your lifestyle? Maybe, I know basically the power of progress, little joke there. You're progressing every day with one little step, one little thing in moving forward. But yeah, what were those tweaks that you made to your life for those who are suffering right now, who have depression, who have anxiety, who are not in shape, who aren't lifting? Like they can learn right from this. Like, kind of, what did you do to get out of it?
Okay, so I will tell you one tweak, but I want to make sure that I tap onto something that you just said. Like, yeah, you're joking about it because that's the name of your podcast.
Yeah.
But you obviously chose that name incredibly deliberately.
Yes.
Because like there is no better motivator in any area of life, including the gym, than seeing progress. Nothing motivates a person better than progress, and nothing will deflate a person more than the lack of progress.
Yes.
So I 100% agree with you on that one. Now, in terms of another little tweak, I remember having a conversation with one of my clients one time, and she was really, really struggling with making progress, ironically enough. So, and I asked her, okay, well, she said she's not getting to the gym. She's not eating well and everything like that. I said, okay, well, what's going on in your life right now? So she was telling me, and she had a whole bunch of things going on that are clearly going to affect your mental and emotional health. And I shared something with her that I had used in 2020 that worked for me. It said, okay, Lynn, imagine you come to one of my classes and I'm demoing exercise and everything like that, but your left knee is hurting. Okay, so let's say, okay, we're going to be doing Bulgarian split squats, but that's going to be hurting your knee. She would come up to me and say, hey, Carl, can I get an alternate exercise or a dial down option so I can do this exercise because my knee is injured? I'd be like, yeah, sure. This is what you can do instead. So when we are physically injured, we have no problem dialing down our options or giving ourselves some grace. However, when we're emotionally injured, we still expect ourselves to perform at 100%, and that is absolutely insane. It is insane. If you are emotionally injured, then whatever your best was is automatically going to come down, and we need to have compassion for that. So it's like, okay, Carl, you know what? These are all the things you needed to do today. How are you feeling today? Today, you're like a 3 out of 10. We're going to have to dial that to-do list back. We're definitely going to need to dial it back because you're not operating at full capacity right now. So you have to have some compassion there. So that was a huge step in realizing that if I'm emotionally injured, then I can't perform at my best.
Oh, I love that, by the way. And you know what that made me think of? I don't want me to interrupt you, but like that made me think of, and this is a huge leap, but like first thing that came to my mind was, and you're not from Chicago, but Michael Jordan, greatest NBA player of all time, of course. Easily. Yeah. His known flu game, where it was like he was just dying from the flu and he still played. Yep. and he was incredible. It was unbelievable.
Was that like
record
was that
books.
the 60? No, that wasn't the 63
No,
point
it wasn't the
game.
60, but he was unbelievable that game. Like he
Yeah, it
just
was
played well,
ridiculous.
it's whatever. And what the correlation I made with that was like, okay, he knew that he was sick, injured, he couldn't do everything. And what he said in the documentary actually was like, I just took the next step. I just did what I could do, and it ended up just working out for me. So even though I wasn't at full,
Yeah.
everything slowed down, because when we're at full, when we're trying to achieve our goals, we look at this massive picture and we got missiles firing at us that are like, we're trying to dodge everything. But when you're sick, things slow down and you just kind of, you don't care about it. You kind of just walk slowly, you go through it, and you're able to realize, okay, I don't need to handle everything all at once. Just handle the next thing that comes my way. And that's kind of exactly like, that was the first thing that came to my head. I was like, that's how he did it. And he obviously had to make, in sports, I get it. And he obviously he's Michael Jordan, but not like, he wasn't anyone special prior to that, by the way. Like he was a guy who got cut from his high school team. Like wasn't this, he wasn't the LeBron James coming out of high school. So
exactly.
but that's what it made me think of. And having compassion for yourself. Like, I think that goes back to a lot of what you said earlier too. It's like men have a hard time having compassion for themselves. So I feel like in today's society, which we may get into a little bit later, is we're not supposed to. Like, we're not supposed to have feelings. We're supposed to be these tough, you can't cry, you can't do this, you can't do this, which probably feeds on this very in a different sense, toxic masculinity, to where we can't even express our emotions because it's deemed not okay to express your emotions. And that's where we don't, that compassion. So if we're not all or nothing, then we're nothing. If we can't do everything, then we're nothing. And that leads to that depressive anxiety cycle that you're talking about. So I think it's a great point that people, like, if you connect those dots, I think it's a great point that people should really, hear and understand.
Absolutely. If you saw me looking down, it's because I just wrote something down that you just said, because that is absolutely brilliant in terms of redefining toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Because you are 100% bang on with that. Like, there is a ton of toxic masculinity in the world, but it's not what people think.
Yeah.
It's men not being able to express their feelings. But how can you express feelings when you don't even know how to identify them? You can't give a name to them. You can't give a word to them. You don't know. You just shut down and cancel it out. And it's just like a cancer inside that keeps growing and growing and growing. Yeah. Eventually it just takes over everything. So I absolutely love and am 100% stealing that for sure. Yeah,
it's yours.
That
now,
is
so
that is like redefining toxic masculinity is huge. Totally agree.
Love it.
Totally agree.
All right, having compassion. So I stopped you there. So having compassion.
Okay, yeah, having compassion for sure. And then the other one, I got to credit this one to a buddy of mine named Henry. And we were just talking about, in terms of, you got to think when you're going to the gym, a lot of times if people are, say, for example, I've got a horrible lower back. Like I know why, like I've got a disc that's like worn to nothing. So there can be times where I'm just bending over to get Tupperware out of the cupboard. And it's like, oh,
is that stenosis?
Yeah. Oh. And it's like, it's,
boy,
it's annoying. It's super annoying, but deadlifts are always the exercise that get me. So I either do them incredibly light or I don't do them at all anymore, because there's other things to do. Anyways. So when somebody sustains an injury in the gym, a lot of times we'll ask them, okay, well, what did you do? And then we think it's that one exercise. Most of the time, it's never going to be that one exercise. It's a series of events that happen prior to that. Like, say if somebody's not in the habit of rolling on a regular basis, or doing dynamic stretching on a regular basis, or doing yoga, or whatever it is. So they're just not doing the things that would make sustaining injuries a very low percentage occurrance, right? Whereas I've got a client right now, I've been training training him for 4 years. He's 65. And so I had him this morning, actually. I go to his house, see him at 6:45. From 6:30 to 6:45, he's stretching. And then the last 10 minutes of our sessions are stretching. Yeah. And he does it every single morning, whether or not I'm with him. So this guy very rarely sustains injuries, because he's invested in prehab, not rehab. So when it comes to emotional health and fitness, what are you doing and what exercises are you engaging in that will result in you prehabbing, so that you're less likely to get injured when shit hits the fan? So when stuff goes wrong in your relationship, do you have the emotional flexibility, agility, endurance, and strength to manage that? If not, then what exercise can you do? Like, say, for example, I'm super choked. I do meditation every morning with this app called Breathe. And I was super sick last week. And the reason that I've been pretty consistent with it, my longest streak was 692 days consecutive. And
Wow.
it broke last week because
No.
I was
Oh, that's
super
so good
sick. I
though.
woke up in the morning. I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm going to throw up. So I skipped my meditation and I forgot to set an alarm to remind me to do it later. So it was like, oh no, now I'm starting all over from square one. But anyways, I've done 13. Actually, today was day 1314 in however long. So I've meditated that many mornings. Now, the reason I meditate is because it allows me to be the witness of my experience. And for me, the number one skill anybody can develop, or one of the top skills, is to be able to be the witness of your experience. Because, say, for example, if my partner says something that triggers me, if I can just step back, witness myself getting annoyed, and then say, okay, Carl, who do you want to be in this situation? Do you want to be the asshole partner that jumps all over her for not taking the laundry out of the dryer, or do you want to realize that you do that all the time too and go on to what's really important? So it's all about mental and emotional prehab. Like, what are you doing specifically on a regular basis to train yourself so that you become not immune to injuries, but less likely to have them emotionally?
I love that. And like, just so to summarize that, when he says prehab, it, to me, it's like, okay, so prehab in relationships, what can you do? When you say exercise, obviously we mean exercise with actual physical activity, but also it's like in your relationship, what are the things that you can do every day to make it so that you are adaptable, you are adjustable, you are,
Right.
flexible in the relationship, that you don't blow up? What are the things that you can do for your mental health? There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Flex. No, I just think flexible is the perfect word.
Okay.
And the reason I say that, with regards to exercise, so say, for example, it doesn't even have to be every day. Every single Tuesday night, Jenny Lee, my partner, and I, we have what are called Tune-Up Tuesdays. So what we do is we sit down and we listen to a relationship podcast together. And we just, as soon as something comes up, it's like, oh, that's an awesome idea. And we pause it, we talk about it. And it typically leads to a somewhat uncomfortable conversation. But at the same time, that discomfort is just like this discomfort in the gym. You know it's leading to growth. So every single Tuesday we do that. So that's with regards to relationship health and fitness. So getting specific things, just like you have when you're going to the gym, if you have a time set to go to the gym, and that's your workout time, you're so much more likely to actually go than just saying, yeah, I'm going to go to the gym today. No, you have to schedule that in. It's no different than your emotional workouts and your emotional training. That stuff has to be scheduled. And for anybody who's into training and working out, we all know that if somebody just goes into the gym and is like, oh, what am I going to do today? And they just go around, yeah, they may get into better shape, but it's just like the guy you talked about that you've seen at the gym for 3 years who doesn't know what he's doing. If you go into the gym with a specific program that is designed to get you to lead you towards making progress towards a specific desired outcome, now you're going to make some progress. So same thing with relationships. How do you define strength and flexibility and mobility in your relationships? How do you define that inside of your mental and emotional health? Like, what would be the first sign that you would notice that you're getting emotionally stronger, that your flexibility is? So perfect example, I've got a short fuse, really short fuse for a lot of stupid things. I'm making cocktails a couple of weeks ago with my buddy coming over, and I decided to make a whiskey sour with a dry shake first. I don't usually dry shake them. So you put the egg whites in there and whatever, and then you shake it up, and then you're supposed to put the ice in it. When I dry shook it and went to move the tins, it exploded and went everywhere. Like, it was all over the place, huge mess. No, like old Carl would have hulked out and just tossed the tins. I took a deep breath. I was like, huh. And then just started making the next drink. And Jenny Lee and my best friend pointed out, they're like, Carl, what just happened? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, you didn't freak out. But that's all because I've gotten better at being the witness of my experience through the prehab exercises. So
that situation, sorry, but in that situation, did you still feel like you wanted? So some people will tell me it's like, well, like you can almost fake it till you make it in some instances. So like in that instance, did you still feel that anger, Or was it actually just like, no, I don't really feel angry about it. It's annoying, but I don't feel the same anger. It's actually gone from my body. Or is it still kind of there? Like, how did you feel?
Okay, so it was 100% still there, but think about it this way. Think about it in terms of DOMs, like the muscle soreness that you feel
Yeah,
after your workouts, right? Like when you first go to the gym after not going for a few months or whatever, like your
it's
body's going to
brutal.
be killing for the next maybe week. But
Mhm.
then you get in the habit of going, and sometimes you have workouts where there isn't any DOMs. It was the same thing here where I get superheated really fast, but the turnaround time is almost instant because I'm able to catch myself before I act. So it's like the heat is definitely still there, but it's like, hold on a second. Yeah, this isn't worth getting upset about. And then it goes away.
That's a great
And
point
then,
because I
yeah.
think a lot of people like don't realize that when you do these things, when you meditate, when you prehab anything in your life, in relationships, fitness, nutrition, mental, whatever, it's not necessarily about, okay, I'm not going to feel a certain way, but it's training the quote unquote muscles in your body to learn how to react differently because we all have our thoughts, we all have our opinions on things. And it's like, okay, like I don't react this way anymore. I still have these thoughts sometimes, but I don't react the same way. And I think that is so underrated because people want to feel different. People want to feel like, oh, like if I have a six pack, I'm going to feel so good about myself. I hate to tell you this, you're not. In fact,
No, you're not going to. You're
you're
going to
not
find
going to.
something else to hate.
Exactly. And so I think training almost a different style of like understanding your body is so important, that you're always going to feel a certain way. It's about how you cope with it and how you react to things that you can definitely train. Now, not to say you can't change how your thought process or you can't change that, but that can't be the only way you ascribe success to yourself. I think it's a good point
Right.
to bring up. Yeah.
Yeah, you're 100% right. So, or I agree 100%, I should say. And the way that I like to look at that is that we like if we just if we start paying attention to our language, a simple shift in even one word can make a world of difference. So, say for example, I didn't react in that situation because if I reacted, I would have tossed the tins and I would have probably ruined the night for everybody.
Through the
Right?
window.
That's exactly what. And the dogs would have totally disappeared like they had before. Another funny story about them, but I responded. I didn't react. I responded.
Mm.
And the difference is when you react, it's an unconscious thing and you just completely, like literally react what you would have done in the past. Whereas a response, there's the pause there. And it's like, okay, what's the situation? Who do I want to be relative to this stimulus? And it's like, it's a split second like that. It's the same thing as in the gym. It's like, okay, well, if you're doing squats, for example, squats for me has always been one of the hardest things to teach people to do properly because there's so many moving components. But it's like after a while, it's like you just work on one thing at a time. Okay, now that you've got that cue down, let's work on this one. And the next thing you know, all those little tweaks that you used to have to really think about have just become automatic. And so it's no different when you're responding in difficult situations. It's just your mind is now trained such that it can respond as opposed to react. Yeah.
I love that. What would you say with your clients, and you've had so many clients at this point, when it comes to relationships, physical fitness, so actually working out, and then their mental space, what would be the most normal reactions people have that are inhibiting them from achieving results? Like, is there a pinpoint? It's like one or two out there that's like,
oh yeah,
most men have kind of, this is the normal thing we see. Like, is there any stats out there or anything that you've seen in your experience?
I don't know about the stats, but oh man, I kind of feel like I was almost thinking about, oh yes, I was thinking about this today because, oh man, you said something in your podcast and
That's good.
oh man, I wish I would have remembered exactly what it was, but we were talking about, I think you were talking about something along the lines of people really looking for the good, or it was something along those lines. But when you ask the question, what is one thing that everybody does? And I'm just going to go back to Carl of 2020, like December 4th, 2019 to December 4th, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
What didn't Carl do? He didn't measure his progress whatsoever. Like, yeah, I saw myself in the mirror, whatever, and I thought I looked good, but there was nothing objective to go at. I didn't take a look at the facts. And very few people are willing to look at the facts of their lives. So say, for example, oh, how's it going today? Oh, It's going okay. Oh, really? Your relationship, you guys haven't had sex in 3 months and you think that's okay? Like that's insane. That's insane. You're going to work and like, you know what, you're super busy and you're stressed out all the time where you have to go home and you have to chill with not that there's anything wrong with chilling with a couple drinks, but
For the
using that right as a coping mechanism, and you think that's okay. And it's like we refuse to look at the reality of our lives. It's like anybody who say they know they put on weight and they're not stepping on the scale because they're scared of what the number is going to be. We do that in our lives every single day, because I heard this on a podcast the other day too. We make the choice between, oh, what was it? Are you content, or are you, oh, what was the word? Content, or I can't remember the word. It starts with a C, but essentially you've just lowered your standards. You've just lowered your standards. You said, you know what? Yeah, I used to want this, and this is what success means to me. But to actually chase that would require a lot of work, and I'm scared to go over there. So I'm just going to lower the bar and lie to myself and tell myself that I'm happy.
Yeah.
Like that's
compromised. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. Compromise.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what we do. And you do it so many times that it becomes the norm. It's like people who want to eat better. Oh, you know what? I had a good workout today. I'm going to go have this. Sure. Keep doing that month after month, year after year. And guess what? You're going to look up, or you're going to wake up, look in the mirror and hate yourself because of what's happened. And then we do that with every single other area of our life.
Everything. I mean, even pain. Like people walk through life with pain, emotional, physical, whatever. And it just, at first it sucks, but then you just get used to it and you don't do anything about it. Don't want to go. And it's just like, it becomes this. My dad had this foot issue for years. And like, yeah, I have this pain. I go, you're not supposed to have pain there. Like, it's not supposed to be a thing. Go figure it out. And like, he was born at a different time, but like, it's just like, don't like, but he just lives with it. It's not a big deal. Whatever. It's no big deal. It's like, how do you like, do you have, from your experience, is there a reason why that, and maybe humans generally just like are willing to compromise what they want and they settle basically for lesser because it's easier? Like, do we know, is it because it's easier? Like, why do we do that?
It is easier short term, and I'll just speak for myself. Yep. So say, for example, okay, so launching my podcast, that was something I wanted to do like 2.5 years ago. And I finally launched it this past March. And it's like, why did it take me so long when I say I know I want to do that? And there were so many fears there. Like I can't even list all the fears that I have.
We could probably go back and forth on that. That's pretty
right. Yeah. And I know you know what that's like. So it's so much easier to just grab a new Band-Aid and put it on every single day instead of going in for surgery. Because surgery is really, really hard. It can be scary and everything like that. And I'm talking about mental, emotional, like relationship, anything like that. Even your sense of purpose in life. It is so much easier to just put a Band-Aid on, change it. Put a Band-Aid on, change it. It's easy until it's not easy, because one of the arguments I have with a lot of people sometimes is it's easier to be lazy and not go to the gym. It's easier to be lazy and just order in instead of doing your food prep. Is it really? Because how do you feel about yourself? Is it really easier knowing that you are lying to yourself and everybody you love, and that you are literally killing yourself on a daily basis because you can't keep your commitments to yourself? That's easier, but we don't look at it like that. It's just a matter of perspective. And what's normal in society typically becomes normal in our lives. Like, we are definitely a product of our environments. It's so hard to escape that. So if you are around people who are constantly making excuses and completely lowering the bar, what hope do you have? On the other hand, it's like in the gym. As soon as you start working out with people who can do things that you didn't know were possible, it's like, I need to up my game. And then all of a sudden, getting stronger. Exactly. You get stronger so much faster because you're with people who have a higher bar. So it's hard to get do you know the crab in the bucket analogy?
The crab in the bucket, isn't it where they'll drag each other down?
Yes. If you put one crab in a bucket, you got to put a lid on. But if you put more than one, you don't have to worry about the lid, because as soon as one climbs out, the other one's going to drag him right back down.
Yes, I've heard that. Yes.
And that's unfortunately just the way we live. That's what people do, whether it's consciously or unconsciously.
See, I love the boiled frog analogy. So
Yes, that's so good. Go ahead.
yeah, if you stick a frog in boiling water, it'll jump right out. No, so if you break your leg, if you do, like, if something shocking happens in your life, like, you're gonna jump right out and try to fix it. But if you settle, if you compromise, something like that, if you stick a frog in warm water and then slowly heat it up, it will stay in there and boil to death. And that's almost an exact analogy to what you just said. Like, we will literally just, like, it's easier to be lazy right now. Just keep warming up the water. And the next thing you know, you're 50, 60, 70 years old. You can't move. You're in a walker. Your health is horrible. You lost all your friends, like, whatever it is. It's just because it was easier not to take action at that time. But the long-term cost of it is your life. And I think it's just like the perfect analogy for kind of what you were talking about.
Exactly. And that's where I was in 2022, right? In a lot of different places. Like, things had slowly started boiling in the water with regards to relationship. Like, I just lowered the bar and lowered the bar and lowered the bar. And next thing you knew, we were roommates. We were just roommates. Like, we were living together. There was no animosity or anything like that.
But you're there.
There was no passion. There was no excitement. I definitely didn't go out of my way to do things that I did when we first started dating. So, like, that's insane. It's insane. At some point in time, whether it's your relationship, the gym, your mental, emotional health, you are going to plateau. You always will. And then you reach the next bar, and then you're going to plateau there. So growth has to be, let me rephrase that. Progress has to be the goal, no matter what.
Love that. I mean, I couldn't agree more. What would you say in your experience is, like, if people listening, right, they understand, they get it. Okay, they're struggling. Okay, I got to take one step at a time. I got to do this, got to work better. What is something specifically, whether it's relationship, emotional, physical, that someone can do? Is it meditation? Is it breath work? Is it, like, and again, we could probably skip the going to the gym part of working out. I can skip that. And I think they get that point. But what's something that, like, we haven't really necessarily talked about that they can do that will help them build their routine in whatever aspect that you choose to talk about and build progress towards the future? Like, what is something they can specifically do?
Okay. That's super simple. And the timing's perfect because on Monday, I received the hard copy of a journaling experience that I've been doing for a couple of years now. I used to just buy dollar store journals and do it, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to try to make something of my own. So I got a hard copy the other day. This is like version number 4, and we finally got it down. Kind of. There's a ton of mistakes in there, but anyways, inside that journal is what I call the mental muscle up. And what the mental muscle up is just 4 simple questions that take you from inspiration to implementation. So, and my tagline on the podcast is, so you can ignite the impact you wish to see in your world. So say, for example, I'm a huge podcast junkie, self-help junkie, listen to a lot of stuff. And so just like with regards to physical health and fitness, where nutrition is a very important part of it, obviously, what you consume in your mind for your relationships and your mental health is critically important. So the question is, okay, what do you do with it now? Like, we all get these aha moments. Like, somebody listening to this will hear that frog analogy and be like, oh my God, that's so powerful.
Yeah.
But then what? Like, are you going to do something with it? Like, nobody would ever come to one of my classes or go train with you, and after we demo the exercises, go 3, 2, 1, go, and they just stand there. They're going to do the exercise, obviously. Like, it's common sense. And yet it's not common sense to take the information that inspires you and actually implement it. So inside the journal and inside my podcast, this is exactly what we do. We go over 4 questions. So say, for example, you said a bunch of really good things on your podcast, but the one that stuck out the most for me, this was so beautiful. I got it written down right here. Every single person is born an original, but so many people die a copy.
Yeah, love that.
That hit me hard. That hit me really, really, really hard. So then the first question in the mental muscle up is, what is your situation? And this is where you define the problem or challenge that you're facing. So say, for example, I don't want to be a copy. I don't want to be like every other podcaster and personal trainer. I want to literally redefine how we look and live health and fitness. So that's the situation. So question number 2 is, what is your transformation? You start off by listing 4 things that you don't want, whether it's an experience or a feeling or whatever it is. And then you list out 4 things that you do want, which are the opposites. So we as human beings are really, really good at defining things that we don't like.
Yes.
So why not use that and just flip it to figure out what we do want? So after you do that, the third question is, what is your inspiration? So this is where you kind of take your quote and you just kind of let that voice within you come out. You get out your feelings and you talk about how, like, a possible lesson that you're getting from that. So a lesson I would get from what you said is like, you know what? It is way too important for me not to die a copy, which means I need to do anything I can to unleash my authentic self on a regular basis. So that would be my inspiration. And then the last question is the most important. What is your implementation? And the implementation is a small, specific, and simple step that you will take in the next 24 hours to ignite the impact you wish to see in your world. So when somebody is struggling with something, it's really simple. Pick up a book, listen to one of your podcasts, get that aha moment, and then run it through the 4 questions so that every single day, just like going to the gym, you're never going to be able to pinpoint which workout got you into the shape that you're in, because it's every single one of them along the way. So as long as you're taking a small, specific, and simple step along the way, you're good to go. So that's what I would do. I would just answer those 4 questions.
I love that. And what are the 4 questions again, real quickly in summary?
What is your situation?
What? Yeah.
What is your transformation? What don't you want and what do you want? What is your inspiration? So just the lesson that you're taking it, like, listen to your voice, not mine.
Yeah.
And then what is your implementation? Your small, specific, and simple step that you can take. That's it.
Love it. I love that.
And it takes 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I've been doing it for a couple of years. And so I'll wake up in the morning. It's like, man, what do I either want to work on right now in terms of making better, or what's going really well that I want to try to replicate? And so that's what I'll label as my situation. And then I just take a quote like that, like this one I'll use tomorrow, and we're going to see what's going to come of this one. So yeah.
I love that. Where can people find you and get more information?
Right now, the very first thing I would recommend people do is just, this is going to sound crazy, but email me. info@carlberryman.com. And the reason I say that is because if somebody has enough balls to actually reach out via email, I know they're serious. The other reason why I say that is because you can get me, you can hit me up on IG @Ignite the Impact. But next year it's going to be debatable whether I'm on social media. I've been going back and forth with that. And there's been times in my life where I've done a social media cleanse for like 30 days, no social media. And rarely have I been happier. So I might be off of that, but for now I'm still on there. Either that, or I'll just get somebody else to completely manage it so I don't have to do it. But so yeah, info@carlberryman.com or @Ignite the Impact on Instagram.
I love it. And that will be in the show notes, so everyone can directly email you from the show notes. So that'd be pretty easy. Any final thoughts, any final takeaways that you kind of want to let the audience know about?
I was just going to ask you, what is your biggest takeaway from this?
Oh my gosh. I love that at the very beginning, we talked about basically the statistics of, what is it? 80% of, or 70% of marriage suicides are by men. And then 70% of divorces are started by women. I think what I took away from this is that men and people in general, I don't want to like, pigeonhole it, but really specifically men here have a very hard time expressing themselves. And that cascades into these other problems, because it's not just one thing. It's not just this one thing that you have to do. It's the cascading effect of, you don't know how to react. You don't know what this is. You can't, it's almost looked down upon to talk about it. And then we bottle it up and then explode. And then it's when you learn how to not react, but to respond. You're not necessarily changing who you are, but you're changing that response that you have, and which can change everything in your life. So I think that was a huge takeaway I got from today's episode.
Okay. Awesome. And to go off of the first one that you mentioned there, in terms of men just being horrible at expressing themselves. Like I've got so many friends that I find out years after the fact, stuff that was going on in a relationship. I'm like, but you meet them, we have drinks, we have cigars and bonfires and lunches and dinners and everything together, and the stuff never comes up and you don't know. And it's like, man, this sucks. So for me, what enabled me, because obviously, like, I'm a guy too, and there's times where I feel Like I'm not super comfortable sharing. I think a lot of people that know me might think I share a little bit too much now, but the way that it started with me is that before I could share with anybody else, I had to start sharing with myself. And that's where journaling came in. So I was just, whatever was in my head, I just started getting it out on paper. Like, it is unbelievably valuable and therapeutic to just start getting your emotions on paper, so that at least you start building up this strength of self-expression. Because if you can do it with yourself, it might not be so hard a little bit down the road to do with anybody else. And it's just like in the gym, right? Just like I said about the deads, you're not going to go in for your 1 rep max. When you're getting together with a buddy or whatever, you don't have to say, oh my God, my wife, I just found out my wife's been cheating on me for the last 3 months and I'm doing this, I'm doing this. No, let's dial it back to start off with and say, you know what, man, I'm just not feeling kind of blah today. Whatever. Like, just start small, but start with yourself. And then men will be surprised when you reach out to somebody and actually, like we said at the beginning, like, open that door, how many other men will come running through because they resonate with you. It's crazy.
Oh, I love that. Well, Coach Carl, I appreciate the insight. I appreciate the time. And, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, man. This was awesome.
Absolutely.